This brief reflection has two texts, the one you see in your bulletin and another. One by the Apostle Paul, the other by a poet of the late 1800s named Francis Thompson, who most of you have never heard of. I first wrote this brief meditation for the first Maundy, Thursday service I ever preached. And that would have been in 1976. I have probably shared it something over 20 times. And I have already done it here either once or twice. I don't feel very guilty about that. I don't normally preach sermons twice. But this poem and very brief reflection have been key for my feelings about Lent, about my own journey of faith, and about our faith together. You know a little bit about the Apostle Paul, and you'll hear his brief reflection on what we call Holy Communion. Francis Thompson was a pre-med student at Oxford, pretty much dropped out or flunked out. He ended up on the streets of London as a heroin addict. He wrote some poetry to stay alive financially. He didn't do it very well. Poetry was fine, the staying alive financially, he didn't do well at all. A prostitute rescued him and cared for him for a while. The great poets of that time in England saw his brilliance and tried also to do that same rescuing. It did not work. But in the midst of that tragic life, he wrote this piece. It's 5 pages long. You'll only get 2 paragraphs. Called The Hound of Heaven. You can Google that for the whole piece. It's difficult, but worth it. And so first from the Apostle Paul, and then from Francis Thompson. Paul writes, "For I received from the Lord what I also handed on to you, that the Lord Jesus on the night when he was betrayed took a loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, 'This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' In the same way he took the cup, and after supper he said, 'This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes.'" The Apostle Paul. Francis Thompson, with a little bit of Tim Johnson at the end. I fled him, that's a capital H. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of the years. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind. In the midst of tears I hid from him. Under running laughter, up vistaed hopes I sped, and shot, precipitated down titanic glooms of chasmed fear. From those strong feet that followed after, but with unhurrying chase, unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, they beat, and a voice beat more instant than the feet. All things betray thee, who betrayest me. So far, Francis Thompson. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him in the sheer pleasures of being young. I fled him in the halls of high school and college. I fled him even to a seminary where theology might hold him at bay. I still flee him in daily duties, in playing pastor, in being busy. I will probably always run from him, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. always afraid that if he catches me, I will no longer be mine, but his. I have fled from God, but never escaped. I thought I had lost him a time or twice, but in the silence, I could still hear those strong feet always close behind. And then above the feet, I would hear the words, "For you," and those words would not let me go. For you. Oh, I would argue Jesus died for others, the heathen, the poor. Jesus died for the world, yes, the whole world. Jesus died for the church, good heavens, yes, he loved the church. But the words would ring in my ears, "This is my body, which is for you." Why this Jesus? Why was he born? Why did he live? And why did he die? And all I could hear as an answer was, "For you." Why for me? And the only answer was, "For you." What was for me? And I was handed a bit of bread and heard the words, "For you." And I was handed a small little glass of wine and heard, "For you." His body, his blood, his life for me. For you. His body was broken and his blood was shed, so wherever I was, whatever I was doing, I would know that God was calling, inviting, chasing me with those words. For you. Tonight is for remembering. Remembering that night long ago when Jesus shared himself with his disciples. He still does. For as we eat and drink at the table, he becomes a part of us. He literally becomes part of us, in us. And we cannot escape. At work, school, home, here, he is part of us. And we are his. So listen tonight as you kneel at this communion rail. Listen all down the row. Hear the words and know why he came, why he lived, why he died. For you. For you.